you everybody for joining us tonight for our talk with occupational therapist and speech pathologist webinar. My name is Jordana Christensen. I'm from the Future Students team here in Brisbane. And tonight we're joined by a number of our current students and alumni as well. So before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are all separately meeting on. For me, that's the Gubbi Gubbi mob. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging as well. So what is occupational therapy? Well, occupational therapists play an important role in the lives of individuals and communities, enabling participation in occupations of self-care, productivity and leisure. So to do this, occupational therapists need to know how humans function, and they need the skills to practice competently and safely. Our guys tonight will also tell you a little bit more about what their role looks like and how they help people in the community. So we know what an occupational therapist is now. What is a speech pathologist, or what is speech pathology? So speech pathologists recognise the importance of communication and swallowing as activities that enable people to participate more fully in their daily lives. So they work with individuals, groups, families and communities to support the development, rehabilitation and maintenance of effective communication and swallowing skills across the lifespan. Alrighty, so we offer both a Bachelor of Occupational Therapy and a Bachelor of Speech Pathology on our Brisbane, Melbourne and North Sydney campuses. So if you've got any questions about it tonight, guys, please feel free to jump into the chat and let us know. We have current students and alumni who have studied both courses who should be able to answer a lot of your questions. We also have some guys from our team online who can answer some other questions around entry for you as well. Alrighty, so the part that you've all kind of joined on to watch and listen to. So we've got our current students tonight are Rachel Downing, who studied a Bachelor of Speech Pathology. We've got Amy Beale doing occupational therapy. And then our alumni are Danielle, Joshua, Kristen, Sarah, and Olivia. So I won't tell you too much about them just yet. I'll have them introduce themselves a little bit. And like we said, any questions, please feel free to jump into the chat function. So I might have the current students, Rachel and Amy, introduce themselves first, and then I'll have, of the alumni, whoever's online, we'll have Danielle, Josh, Kristen, Sarah, and Olivia. So I'll hand that over to them now.
Hi, I'm Rachel. So I'm in my 4th and final year of speech pathology at the Melbourne campus. And yeah, I think that's all that I had to say.
Yeah, wonderful. And Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm currently in my 2nd year of occupational therapy at the North Sydney campus.
Wonderful.
And my name is Danielle. I'm an occupational therapist. I graduated ACU in North Sydney in 2019, and I'm a paediatric OT. I have my own business, Enhanced Life Occupational Therapy, that I work for along Sydney's northern beaches.
Wonderful. Now, Joshua wasn't able to join us this evening, but I might have Sarah, Olivia, and Kristen introduce themselves.
My name's Sarah. I studied a Bachelor of Speech Pathology at the North Sydney campus and I finished up last year. I'm currently working as a paediatric speech pathology at a private clinic in Sydney.
Wonderful. Maybe Olivia, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Olivia and I studied a Bachelor of Speech Pathology ACU in Melbourne and graduated in 2019, which obviously means that I'm an alumni, currently working in the private setting and school for myself. So I'm the business owner of this private practice and also the founder of a non-for-profit organisation based in Melbourne, which is speech related, if you have any questions about that.
Amazing.
And my name's Kristen. I also studied a Bachelor of Speech Pathology at the Melbourne campus. I graduated in 2019. I'm currently working in Geelong in the disability sector. I work primarily out in the community and about 90% of my clients are NDIS. Work across the lifespan and travel around Greater Geelong and Colac region as well. So if you're keen to work in regional Victoria, please ask all the questions.
Wonderful. So I might have everybody just tell us maybe one thing that surprised you for alumni about your industry, but for our current students, I'd be keen to hear about something that's maybe really surprised you about your course. So we might go, yeah, Rachel and Amy. Is there anything in particular that surprised you?
This might be a bit cliche, but I think just learning how much speech pathologists do to help different people. I didn't actually know that we did swallowing coming into the course, but now looking back, like, it's surprising that we do all these things. You know, we teach kids who might be nonverbal, or we might help someone in the hospital who's just had a stroke and they can't swallow anymore, things like that. So it's just, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, I guess you could definitely say the same thing for occupational therapy. When coming into it, you don't really understand the broad scope of OT and the amount of areas that you can work in, and the amount of like the effect that occupational therapy can have on a person's life. Coming into it, I just thought, oh, it's just like physio, but we'll probably go into it later. It's definitely not just like physio. And so it was really great to see how unique of a profession it is.
Wonderful. Now, Danielle, as an occupational therapist alumni, did you have anything about maybe your course or the industry that surprised you?
Sorry, yeah, again, I think similar thing. I'm trying to think of something different, but I went in saying I was going to work in pediatrics and learnt that there were so many other subjects that we did. I think it also surprised me that I did come in wanting to do pediatrics, and I only did one unit on pediatrics in the whole 4-year course, feeling like it wasn't maybe going to be enough for me to then go into the degree and into the career, from it after uni, but realizing that, you know, we did a mental health unit and, you know, all the other sort of practices, and realizing, well, even though we just did, you know, a 10-week 1 unit on pediatrics, that there were so many skills that we learned in all the other units that still I use in my career to this day, that were in mental health units and in, you know, hand therapy and in disability and all the other sort of areas, and how those skills all really do cross over to be used within any area of practice. So yeah, I would say that definitely surprised me coming out of uni, realizing that after uni.
Yeah, wonderful. Sarah, Olivia and Kristen, don't feel the need to share if you don't want to, but was there anything in particular about speech that maybe shocked you, or even about your course that was quite surprising or eye-opening for you?
I can jump in on this one. I know that for Kristen and I, we graduated and went straight into a pandemic. So we were maybe a little shocked initially, changing all of our therapy approaches that we've learned from face-to-face and implementing skills that we kind of learnt in not as much detail on telehealth. But I think to add to that, the surprise at how adaptable the field is, and I'm sure it's the same with OT, that we could still sort of continue our therapy approaches and make some really great gains online. I'm sure probably a little bit more difficult for OT, but with speech, because it is majority it's focused on communication, and that can be done sort of anywhere and in lots of different ways. So that was a pleasant surprise.
I think on that as well, and like Rachel sort of touched on, the depth and breadth of what you can do with speech pathology, and I guess OT as well, was really surprising. We literally work from birth all the way up to end of life, and there's so many things involved. I think everyone goes, oh, speech pathology, stuttering and lisps, that's what you do, and there's just so much more to it than that. And then I think another thing would be, what I found really surprising was how high in demand we are. There is not enough of us, waiting lists out the door for a lot of places. So I think I was surprised at how many opportunities there actually are in terms of a job and in terms of a career.
Yeah, wonderful. And so I would be keen actually to hear, particularly from the speech alumni at the moment, how was the transition into the workforce? Was it hard to find a job for everybody? Was it easy? I suppose it depends perhaps when you graduated, but I'd love to hear from yourself, Sarah, Olivia and Kristen about that.
I can jump in on that one. So which I think a lot of my cohort was very much the same. We were all very successful in finding a new graduate role. A lot of us had one lined up, around November, December to start in January the following year. As we have mentioned, there's significant wait lists, and it does blow out the further you go regionally and remotely. I think for me, like something that is quite surprising as well is that you can work out in the community. I didn't quite realize that. You don't have to work in a clinic or in a hospital. You can be out doing home visits or visit someone at their workplace. You could meet someone at their Scouts group and support them there too. So it's really diverse, and you can make the role however you want it to look, which is really cool and really unique.
Yeah, awesome.
I think to add to that, in terms of sort of transitioning from uni to the workforce, a lot of it does depend on the workplace that you're in and making sure that you've got really good supervision and support. But I do really feel that ACU supported our learning to make us quite independent in the field, particularly with research, and in the speech pathology field, probably very similar with OT. The presentations are constantly changing and the research is constantly changing. So yeah, really fortunate that we kind of were given those skills to be able to, take them into the workforce.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, Amy, I think you might have touched on it earlier. There is a lot of, mystery around what occupational therapy is, and how it differs from physiotherapy. So as part of my role in the Future Students team, I'm always attempting to answer this question, and I think I've got an answer, but I'd be really keen to hear, Amy, what you think the difference is between occupational therapy and physio, and then Danielle, if there's anything on top of that that you might be able to add to that, it'd be wonderful to hear about.
Yeah, so just to cover it very superficially, occupational therapists will help someone in the community achieve pretty much anything that their occupations are, which is anything that they want to do, need to do for work, do like in their daily lives. So it's very broad. So you can work with children in the school setting, you can work with helping adults return to work, you can work in the acute setting in hospitals. So I could go on for ages. It's very, very broad. So it's more helping people on like a more holistic level, I would say. But Danielle can also add to that as well.
Yeah, no, I think you did a well job at explaining that. It is sometimes quite a tricky one, I think, to explain when people have such a broad overview of both. I guess a really good example might help. So, for example, if someone's goal at any age was to go to the toilet, for example, we would be working as an OT on, okay, well, what are the steps in going to the toilet? How do you turn around and wipe yourself? When do you need to go? That continence and all of that. Whereas a physiotherapist is, okay, how are we going to walk to the toilet? How are we going to get there and sit down onto the toilet seat? So their goal is a lot more physical, and we work together so closely with a lot of our clients because the physiotherapist needs to get them there of the skills to get to the toilet, to then have the OT be focusing on, okay, now what are the steps to actually use the bathroom? And then you can use that example to many different examples. For example, today as well, I had a client who did a physiotherapy initial assessment that I shadowed, which is obviously different to my role. And the physiotherapist was focusing on this little 3-year-old kid and how they do jumping and skipping and balancing, and how they sit on the floor and how they stand up off the floor and how they walk downstairs. And so that is a lot of their focus, whereas my goals were not at all that for the same client. Mine were, okay, how can we play on the floor? How can we sit at the table and do a colouring activity? But theirs was, okay, how are we going to sit onto that chair? How are we going to get from the floor and stand up and then safely get off that chair? And how are we going to walk up the steps to the therapy clinic? So those are some examples, I guess, to hopefully help differentiate the difference of the roles, but how closely we work together to achieve some of the same goals.
Yeah, wonderful. And it was really interesting to hear about how you might help a child versus maybe an adult who's looking to do, maybe priorities are different exercises. For our speech alumni, do you have any examples of maybe how working with a younger child in speech pathology might differ from working with an adult?
I can talk to that one. I work across the lifespan. So my oldest is about 75 and then my youngest is 4. So their goals are quite different. So for a younger child, we might be looking at a transition to school. We might be looking at some social communication goals, some friendship-based goals, and being able to participate in class and make those positive relationships. An adult might be wanting to find a job. They might want to move out and be independent. And with that comes being able to advocate for themselves and communicate. So something really fun about speech is that we do get to use a lot of technology when it comes to communication methods. So it's not just spoken words that you communicate with, you can also use a speech generating device. So it's really quite incredible. No matter what age you are, you can integrate a successful communication method into your daily routine, and such a rewarding, moment for us as speech pathologists to see that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And on the same note, so I'm similar to Kristen. I work across the lifespan, and strangely enough, there are some clients that I have similar goals. So I have a 65-year-old client who is recovering from quite a large stroke. Yep. And we're working on him being able to introduce himself and say his name, and that's the same for a 3-year-old child with a language delay. So there's definitely similarities and differences, and I think the main importance of what you're working on is your functional goal. So can I send a text message? Can I order a coffee? Can I ask for a banana from mum? As long as the goals that you're working on are functional, it can be across the lifespan.
Yeah, wonderful. Now I've heard a little bit about what it's like out in the industry, but Amy and Rachel, I'm really keen to hear from you guys. What does a week in the life of a uni student look like? How many days are you on campus? Do you have lots of lectures, lots of pracs? Like, I'm really keen to hear, what does it look like for you guys?
So I'm currently in second year, just finishing this week actually. So at the moment, and it's probably similar with all the other years, we do 4 units or classes per semester. And at the moment I have about, depending on the class, it's about 1 class per unit. So it might be, I have 1 tutorial per unit. So I have 4 classes a week. And then one of my classes has a prac and a tutorial, which is more physical, hands-on. That's with our upper limb class. So we're more making splints and that kind of thing. So at the moment, I'm only in 2 days a week. So it's pretty flexible. I was able to put most of my classes on one of those days, and then the other day is just 1 class. So it allows me to work on the days that I'm not at uni. But yeah, I've got the 4 units in a semester. So that's equating at the moment to 5 classes a week, which is pretty flexible whenever I can have it on.
Yeah, wow. Is that similar for you, Rachel, as well, or is it a little bit different?
So it's a little bit different. So from first year to third year, it's probably pretty similar, but final year is more based around placement. So we have 1 block of pediatric placement and then 1 block of adult placement in the second semester of the year. So currently I'm undergoing my adult placement, which was maybe 15 weeks or 12 weeks. It equates to about 30 days in total. And then prior to the placement, we did a 3-week block at uni, which was, I think, 4 or 5 days a week, where they prepared us for the placement, or prepared us for other assessment tasks that we had to do.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, I know prac is a really big component of everybody's course. Sarah, I'd be really keen to hear, do you have a favourite memory or anything in particular that stuck out to you about prac?
What I absolutely loved about ACU is that you get that final year to basically just consolidate all the theory that you've learnt the last 3 and apply it, and that's your main focus. So I was really lucky last year in lockdown. I got to go up to Port Macquarie. My mum's originally from there and all my family there, so it was really nice. I could stay with them. And I did about 2 months at the community centre on my PEDS placement. This is both public, and then later on in the year did about 2 months up at Port Macquarie Base Hospital. What I loved about it, and I highly recommend doing a regional or rural placement if you can, is that although I was based at Port Base Hospital, I was going to Kempsey, Laurelton, Wauchope as well. So I got such a well-rounded experience. The whole thing was amazing, especially in adults. I was seeing people coming in the acute phase. So someone who had maybe a stroke a day before or 2 days before, but then was able to follow. I actually got to follow someone onto their journey into rehab as well. So I loved the whole thing. And I think regional and rural placements allow you to have a really, really nice experience. So I would highly recommend, and ACU does such a fabulous job at giving you those opportunities. And I think it's the same on other campuses. There are those regional and rural placements wherever you are. So the whole thing was great.
Yeah, wonderful. And I'm keen to hear from our other speech alumni as well. Olivia and Kristen, did you guys have a favourite memory or something that really stuck out to you about prac?
Yeah, I feel like we're pretty lucky with the variety of placements that we got. It's obviously something that the ACU team really strive towards, giving variety so that you can get a better understanding of what the career looks like, and also hopefully help make a decision as to what sort of area you want to go into, because there's a really huge range, as you've sort of heard of tonight. But for me, I was working in a hospital at hospital rehab. So it was, I think, 4 months post stroke for this particular client. And in our session, working with a particular therapy approach, he managed to say his first sort of sentence of words post stroke, 4 months. So that was, yeah, a big highlight for me.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, something similar for me as well. So I had one of my placements down in Warrnambool at Southwest Healthcare down there, and it's still to this date my favourite story. I was in 3rd year uni, and my supervisor at the time said, "Look, I have tried everything under the sun with this man. He'd had an acquired brain injury and was in outpatients," and she said, "You know what? Just do some research and bring in a therapy technique, and we'll see how it goes." So I chose something called script training, and this man was able to say his first words since the brain injury, and he was crying, his carer was crying, I was crying. It was a very emotional moment, and it was a couple of weeks after the placement, actually, my supervisor got a phone call, and the carer just said, I feel like I want to go do speech pathology now. That was really, really cool.
Oh, that's amazing. That is really amazing. Amazing to hear. Danielle, do you have any favourite stories or favourite memory from when you were doing your occupational therapy prac?
Yeah, so ours was, I think, unlike speech, spread across our whole 4 years, and you got to do a placement first semester, like a half day, and it just got longer, like the placements got longer and longer throughout the 4 years. So placements were really spread out, and we had to do 1,000 hours of placements in the 4-year total course. We did have to do a rural and remote placement as part of our 4-year course for one of those placements, either a 5 or a 9 week block. And I was very hesitant to go out. I did a 5-week one and do that. But again, I agree. I think it was actually really great. The other thing I noticed, which I didn't really realize prior to that, is going out and doing a rural placement is very broad, because there's not a lot of OT. So you're basically expected to cover everything and everyone that's out.
Right.
So that was very interesting. There was like 1.5, so one full-time and one part-time equivalent OT where I was based out in Griffith in the middle of New South Wales, and we saw everyone in the hospital, all ages, everyone in the community, and yeah, it was very interesting to see that massive spectrum. So I thought that was good. And then the other thing is they do make sure that you cover a broad range of areas in OT, a big scope within your placement. So you often won't, even though I was interested in pediatrics, I only did like one true pediatric placement, sort of a half another, but they didn't want to keep giving me pediatrics. So I got to experience lots of other things. But in saying that, I said I was interested in pediatrics, and they ensured that that was covered, and that was covered as much as it could be, but still giving me the opportunity to see all other areas. So I really liked that. And I got to do some hospital placements, some community placements, some private practice placements, and then all different areas within that too. So I really liked that. And I think that was, just overall a good memory to come out with. The other thing, actually a really good memory, is one of my first placements. I did a camp, a muscular dystrophy camp I volunteered for, which was 5 days a week overnight. And I have volunteered every year since that, back at that camp, since that placement, every December before Christmas, which is lovely, a lovely opportunity to have had a placement within that, to know that that's something that I can volunteer and help out the community and these kids with, and then go back to every year and see the same kids and just have a smile on their face and enjoy a camp and some respite before the Christmas period. So I really, I guess I take that probably away the most with me, because I still do that to today.
Yeah, that's amazing. Amy, I'm keen to hear about what OT placements you have done and how long they've been so far.
Yeah, so in first year, you do a 2-week placement at the end of the year, and you also do it like a half day in the first month or so of the degree, which doesn't sound like too much, but a lot of the students that study have never seen an OT in real life before, including myself. So for both of those, I was in an acute hospital setting. My half-day placement was in like a neuroscience ward at the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, which was very a big like step into the deep end for OT. It's very hustle bustle, and that pretty much just involved me observing what's going on, seeing what an OT's role is in a hospital setting. And my 2-week placement at the end of the year in first year was pretty similar. It was in the aged care ward at Liverpool Hospital. And that was also a step in the deep end. You pretty much take everything you've learned foundation-wise in OT and you apply it. So it's very much interviewing clients in the hospital, bedside, helping them with all of their daily activities that they'd be doing in the hospital, and working with them to achieve whatever goal that they were hoping to achieve while in the hospital. And then in second year, we do a 1-week simulated placement with the return to work area of occupational therapy. So I had actually just finished that a couple of weeks ago. And it was really interesting. You work with your cohort for the whole week. So it's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And it kind of feels like you're proper like working as an occupational therapist in your own private practice. So it's very interesting.
Amazing. And Rachel, do you want to tell us a little bit about any of the practice that you've had or what you might have coming up?
Yeah, so from first year, they get us to do a 1-day observation, so we can kind of see what's happening in the speech pathology world and start to understand what a speech pathology does. Second year, they mainly got us to do all our placements with pediatrics and kids in a school, which was quite helpful because although it was only 1 day a week, we did it across the whole year. So we could see the same kids for the whole year, learn how to do assessments and then therapy with the same kids, which was actually quite beneficial because you learn to build rapport and everything with the same kids. And then second year is more an adult third year is more an adult-based year. And it was quite helpful because the uni got actors to come in where they pretended to be sick in a bed, which helped us when we were going out into the real world. I know a lot of my peers were quite nervous to have an adult placement and to go into hospitals, but I found that the uni was quite accommodating. They gave us lots of feedback and they taught us, this is what you can do with the patients. This is how you should act with the patients. If you need help, this is what you can do. And it really reassured a lot of me and my peers.
Yeah.
And then, as I was saying before, my final year is split into both pediatrics and adults, which, as others have mentioned, help consolidate all of our learning and really help us to be ready for the workforce.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I think that's probably one of, I know I'm biased, but one of my favorite things about ACU is we do try to get you in the industry from year one, even if it's just observational, because I think a lot of people forget that if you don't know somebody that has that job, it's really hard to gain access or even really research what they do in enough depth to decide that, yep, that's what you want to spend the next 3 or 4 years doing, and yep, that's how you want to start your career. So I think we try to get everybody in from year one so that you can have a bit of a, I guess, better picture as to what it is that you'll be doing now that you've signed up to this course.
I've actually had supervisors on placement say that they prefer ACU students because we are coming into the placement more aware and more experienced. So having placement from first year on has made a huge difference, and it's noticeable in other clinicians.
Yeah, and I think it just gives you the opportunity to get some of those, I guess, like courtesies or like those, I guess, the workplace manners that you otherwise might not have if you hadn't, been involved in the industry from year one. And so that's just one less thing you have to worry about. Similar, I guess, to when we have the actors come in and practice, you just feel that little bit more confident going in, being able to just know your stuff and do what you're there for. Yeah. Wonderful. So we've got a question here. It says, it's for our speech alumni. Speech pathology sounds like such a rewarding job. Would you say that the job is significantly physically or mentally draining?
Oh, yeah, yes, it can be. I think it's really important, and this is from day dot, the first day that you start the career, it's really important to have those self-care strategies. I know everyone talks about it. We're getting a lot better at it as a whole community, normalizing, challenges with mental health and reaching out and asking for help, and your career is no different. So it is really important to have those things that you love and do, a work-life balance, making sure that you've got a really supportive workplace that will enable you to do that. So, I tailor my calendar to my interests. I'm a morning person. I like to do my exercise in the morning, and I can do that, and it's no problem. And I can go home and enjoy those interests like soccer, be in a soccer team with all the requirements with that, with no troubles at all. But it's important to have those boundaries in place for yourself and some really good strategies set up before you get into your full-time career. And it's important for study as well, because we know as students it can be really taxing too at university, and reaching out for help. It's you're going to be your biggest tool at uni and in your career.
To add to that, it's the most rewarding career ever, and I'm a little bit biased because it's been my only one, but it's certainly important, particularly I think OTs and speechies, we're very caring by nature. So when a new client comes through the door, or you get a phone call, or your friend's friend knows someone that needs a speechie or an OT, which happens a lot, it's important to set your boundaries and know when to say no and when your caseload is full. As Kristen said, you need to be able to have me time, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah,
I think, one more thing. I think in general, if like taking what everyone said, the pros outweigh the cons, and there are some days that you just get home and you are exhausted, like many jobs. I think also in speech and in a lot of allied health roles, we're not just working with one person, we're working with families, we're working with partners, we're working with lots of different people, and lots of people have different inputs. Yeah, I think all those self-care things are important. I think also you learn that not to take everything personally. Sometimes it's not what people mean. It's yeah, although there are some challenging days, I think that I would never want any other job. And I think that we're in it for such a long period of time, you know, speech pathologist, it is a career that, and OT, you can have it forever and you can change it in the ways that you like. But it has nice longevity, and yeah, I think it's such a wonderful job.
Yeah, wonderful. Danielle, would you find that it's the same for OT?
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, running a business is a whole nother level as well. I'm really trying to be good at clocking off at certain times and know when my caseload is too full and not taking on any more clients. But I think being able to really plan out your diaries is important. I always remind myself, like, if I can't look after myself and I'm not mentally there, then I can't look after my clients. Like with pediatrics especially, and I mean with really anyone, I need to be energetic, I need to be enthusiastic, I need to be there to participate in therapy. And if I'm tired or I'm stressed, or if, you know, haven't got enough sleep, then that's just going to impact my career. So I really do keep reminding myself, like, I'm here to live my life, and work is my enjoyable thing, but I'm working to live my life, not living to just work every day and not live my life still. And really taking importance to, you know, ask your employees or whoever they are, your bosses, your supervisors, like, I want to go on a holiday, I want to take a month off, I want to take a week off. And I've actually been really surprised that most of the time they're like, yes, please go, we want you to look after yourself. And they're so supportive of that. If you want to come in an hour later because you have an event or a cultural thing or whatever, like, most workplaces are so accepting of that because they understand that. So just remembering that in any job, but in these jobs in particular, when you're carrying that caseload of helping people, to help yourself first.
Yeah, wonderful. And Danielle, I did ask the speech alumni this earlier, but how did you find transitioning into the workforce? Was it easy for you to find a job? Was there anything you wish you knew going into it?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, I graduated and I never got a graduation through uni because we went straight into a pandemic. So it was hard. I actually sort of left thinking I was going to take a gap year off to just break before I worked, and that turned into going on holiday. I was going to go on a holiday in the middle of the year, like overseas. Classic, everyone would be doing similar, but I ended up doing support work, and then that led into being like, oh, can you do OT, because we don't have an OT because there's wait lists everywhere, and then led into me running my business. So I sort of jumped a step and went straight into business after uni, rather than working for someone else. But then I realized 2 years in that I probably do need to work for someone else and gain some further skills, because I had only done placements and that wasn't really everything. Yep. So I, for the last year, have been working for another clinic part-time, just with some other OTs, because in my business I'm my only OT. So I found that transition quite difficult, where if I had a tricky client, I was the only, I couldn't ask anyone else. So I mean, I had a supervisor I paid for, but other than that, I found it really tricky, and I would always recommend to go and work for others before anything, and really get that understanding and then sort of move into it. When I found that job, your question in terms of getting a job, easy. So many people wanted me. I applied for so many jobs, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, please, whatever hours, whatever days, whatever caseload you want, please, we just need OTs. Because again, like, even for my business, I've got an 80+ client wait list right now, and I can't take anything more than I can with the time I have. So I think that's really important to understand, like, go sell yourself, but be picky and choosy, because everyone will take you. Good job security. You can't replace us in our role forever, because we need to physically be there. We can't be replaced by technology. So people will always need you. And with the NDIS, there's so many jobs available.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that I hear a lot is that people and businesses are just screaming out for occupational therapists and speech pathologists. They're in such high demand, and there just aren't as many of them as we need. So it's definitely seems to be a very secure job. Certainly for the upcoming future. Now, I'm interested to hear from everybody. I'd love to hear maybe one characteristic that you think is really important to be successful in your role or in your field or at uni. So I might start with Rachel and Amy first. I'm keen to hear, is there anything in particular that you guys think or that you've seen in other people that is really inspiring to you?
I think a key one might be like caring for others.
Yeah.
But another one that's really important for uni and even in the workforce is time management. As long as you are on top of all of your, assignments and tasks that need to be done, everything else will fall into place, I think.
Yeah.
Well, occupational therapy, what I learned very quickly in first year is that you just have to have the other people's best interests as your top priority. So just being very, very person-centered. Basically all of occupational therapy, and probably same with speech pathology, is the client will tell you what they want to achieve, and that is what goal you are setting for them. You don't set their goals, they basically set their goals themselves. So being very person-centered.
Yeah, I like that. Speech alumni, do you guys have any particular characteristics or traits that you think are really important to be successful?
I'm not sure if it's necessarily important, but I find myself having to be very creative every day. So a therapy technique in a case study or in a textbook, I've tried 10 different ways, depending on what the client likes or what their personality is or their level of engagement. So I surprise myself every day and I think, where did I pull that from? And I mean, gosh, we've just got to be innovative as well. Like we do a lot of research as OTs do as well. That's what I would say.
Yeah, wonderful.
It's a tricky one to pick one word, but I think for me, the two words that I'd probably go with is approachable. I think if you're easily approachable and open, you're instantly going to get that rapport, and that's where you'll start seeing some really great results from your clients, and probably patient. That's something that clients comment on a lot, and parents of children that we work with, oh wow, you're so patient, whereas normally they'd be like, come on, get the word out, next trial. So patience is pretty important for speech pathology, and that obviously translates to stuttering, being able to pause and wait for that client to get their words out, or an aphasia, client with aphasia. So being approachable and being patient is key.
Wonderful. Sarah, was there anything you thought of?
Both of them, and I think that real authenticity, if you're your authentic self and building that really nice rapport, then that is the most important thing. You can have, do the most research and have the best plan, but if you don't have that rapport and that relationship with the client, it will not work. I think one, maybe a bit of flexibility. So sometimes you do that plan, you've got it all worked out, especially in peds, and I work in the disability sector, and you get there and they go, I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. And again, that's where that creativity and innovation comes in, where you go, all right, on the spot, what are we going to do? And that's where having that nice rapport and having a real understanding of your client, you can fall back on, and you can walk into a session and go, all right, no one wants to do what I want to do. I'm going to use that knowledge, know that I know my client really well, and go from there.
And sometimes they're the best sessions, which is insane.
Danielle, is there anything else that comes to mind? I know there's been a lot of really great characteristics or traits brought up, but
they were all on point. I think adding like for me, working with pediatrics and disability, and needing a lot of motivation sometimes, is a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of like energy. I have to bring lots of energy and lots of enthusiasm, even if I don't have that and feel like it. I have to almost like switch on, put a face on when I walk out and see that client, and I'm just bubbly and enthusiastic, and you just engage, and that's how you build rapport, and that's how you're able to then engage in a session and do something and then be able to successfully achieve goals. Otherwise, if I just spoke boring and I wasn't really engaging or talkative, then they wouldn't engage. We wouldn't get anything done. It would just be useless doing any therapy. So I think that's really important, especially in the pediatrics area.
Yeah.
I actually read an article a while back now that showed that it typically took 400 repetitions for someone to learn something new. And with fun or play, it took 10.
Yeah.
So if you're fun, energetic,
Wow.
and motivating, then you'll progress your goals really, really quickly because they're engaged and they're hanging off your every word or instruction.
Definitely.
Amazing. Now, I love that we've spoken about creativity and innovation and like enthusiasm. This might be a little bit of a tough one, so I'll put it out to everybody and I'll see if anybody's got any thoughts about this. But is there anything in the future of your industry that really excites you? Maybe any new technology or techniques, or for our current students, anything that you're learning about that you think is really exciting and might be a game changer in the industry?
I think for speech, we're really opening up into what areas we go into.
Yeah.
So something that's sort of starting to pop up is speech pathologists working in the justice system and working either in youth justice or in adult prisons. And a lot of that is focused on some literacy programs that are happening, because we know that with communication and education, we are giving people more opportunities for when they transition out of those settings. So I'm really excited to see the future of that. If you want to know more information, there's Speech Pathology Australia have a podcast, and they do a podcast episode talking to speech pathologists working in that setting. But I just think it's super interesting, and I think literacy is something that has always sort of been there, but now with things like children having 2 years almost off school, homeschooling, that sort of thing, that's really, we're seeing those kids that need that extra support. So I think to kind of segue into that, I think literacy is an interesting one from either kids coming into the clinic or going into the justice system as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, that is awesome to hear about, I guess, the new focuses in those areas. That sounds amazing. But did anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's been a big shift as of late around, or in the speech pathology field, around neurodiversity. I'm sure most, and it was myself included, pre-studying speech pathology, your typical idea of autism or a person that is neurodivergent is that they might flap their arms and not have any eye contact and have really poor social skills. But I think this new framework of understanding in autistic people, and even just the terminology, I'm still getting my head around it, is really changing the way that we look at how we work with autistic people. It's looking at similarities and differences instead of strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And it's just a really great shift, and a lot of it's led by adults that have ADHD and are autistic, who are now being able to vocalize their preferences for the autistic community. So really big shift, and it's awesome, and it's still a long way to go.
Yeah, amazing. Alrighty. Well, before I ask you guys our last question or two for the night, for anybody that's joining us online, feel free to pop any questions you might have in the chat. We might not get a chance to get around to all of them, but if you've got any more questions about entry into the course, or you'd like to know a little bit more about the course, please feel free to reach out to Ask ACU. Otherwise, you're also welcome to book in for one-on-one consultations with the Future Students team. Obviously, we won't all be able to share such specific experiences with you, but we will be able to give you an overview of the courses, what subjects would be involved, prac hours, entry requirements, things like that. So if you don't get a chance, like I said, to have your questions answered tonight, please feel free to jump on to Ask ACU, who will be able to answer a lot of those questions for you. Now, I am really keen to hear from everybody on this one. Is there something that you wish you knew, either going into university or going into the industry, that you'd like to share with everybody that's on the webinar tonight? I might start with yourself, Danielle, if you feel comfortable. What's one thing that you wish you knew going into it all?
That I wish I knew. I'm not good at change and transitioning necessarily myself. So going from high school, which I ended up loving and was so into it by year 12, and then having to leave that, and I was the oldest of my siblings, to then go into university. I didn't really know even friends or family friends or anyone else older than me that was in uni. So I was really the first one to go in, just totally with a blank piece of paper, not knowing what to expect. Was quite nerve-wracking. So I think I wish that I knew a little bit more, like I got to speak to people a little bit more about what to expect and what to prep. I became very nervous on, like, I didn't have my textbooks by the first day, and I brought a diary, and I used to ask for homework, and they were like, don't ask for homework when I'm at school. And I had no idea, like I had no idea how to plan. But by the time I got to, and I always said to myself every semester, I said, by fourth year, second semester, I'll have this and I'll know what to do, and I'll have the whole uni thing down pat. And I did. I had it perfect, and it worked for me, and I was successful in uni and everything. But it took me every semester to learn new things to get there, and then I had to leave. So I think I wish that I learned a lot of that stuff that I learned, and I knew that I was going to learn by the end. I wish that I got to speak to people or do things earlier and learn those things to help me within the 4 years and not just last minute. Another thing was accessing the ACU, like the support team there. I didn't do until fourth year, and then I used and abused the service. And how much they helped me with like planning and prepping and how to get my way around uni and organizing it and doing all this stuff. Like, it was so much easier, and they reviewed assessments for me and helped me write a resume and like all this stuff. I wish that I used that and I knew those skills that they could help me with, or I could speak to someone older earlier on. So I think, like, if anyone needs to reach out, like, you're more than welcome to loop through ACU and they can contact me. I'm happy to be in contact and share some resources, or ACU team are happy to. I think that's just, I wish that I got connected with someone maybe in the first year. I don't know if ACU has anyone in like the third year or fourth year that on the first semester you can kind of meet them and have like a buddy you can communicate with if you need, that sort of thing. I wish that I knew, and I knew about and how to do things earlier on. And
do you know what? I find that's always the way, is you get to the end, you're really good at it, and then it's time to leave. So that's one of the reasons we encourage our students to, come along for orientation week. We get to take you through a lot of the student support services. We can tell you about our peer assisted like study sessions. And we've also got a program called Connect to Uni, which is designed to buddy you up and help you kind of get through the first year, answer all those questions you're not quite sure about. I was the same. I was first in my family, and I've got friends whose maybe parents have just forgotten what it's like, or things have changed. So we've got a lot of really great initiatives for students in your first year. Don't be like Danielle and I and get really good at it at the end. There is an opportunity to be good at it from the beginning. But I might hear as well, Sarah and then Olivia, did you guys have anything in particular that you wish you knew going into the study or the industry?
I wish I knew more about speech pathology. I actually did a Bachelor of Psych at RMIT before studying speech pathology. So if I could wind back time, although the psych degree is super applicable and helpful in the speech career, if I could wind back time and pretty much do what you guys are doing now in listening in from speech pathologists and hearing more about the degree, I would, because going in, I thought it was sort of lisps and stutters, but little did I know the huge variety that the course offers. Another thing I think I wish I did more of, and a lot of third and fourth year speech students are doing now, is working as AHAs in either schools or private setting. And I wish I knew that that was an opportunity. Given the demand that you've heard of in the speech field, don't hesitate to approach companies, private practices, and see if they're requiring extra assistance. And I'm sure with 98% accuracy, you'll almost definitely land an AHA job, and that experience will set you up to transition into the workforce really nicely.
Yeah,
I have a very similar experience to Olivia. So I did a Bachelor of Speech, Hearing and Language Sciences at Macquarie prior to doing speech pathology at ACU, which is very, very common at North Sydney. My biggest advice is, if you're really keen on studying speech pathology and you really want to do it, please go and do the Bachelor, go in and do it. Having that 4 years time to consolidate is so, so important, rather than trying to do it in 2 years in a master's. You have time to work, to study. And again, I was an AHA before I finished my degree, and it was the best thing that I ever did. So I worked in a clinic, and I was really well supported by a speech pathologist, doing almost like little bits of therapy to help them out. And that was, I think, the one thing that prepared me, because although you learn all this at uni, until you are in it and doing it, that is when it all kind of, the puzzle comes together. So I think getting as much hands-on experience as you can is the best thing you can do, making sure you're really well supported. But if you can be in there, do it.
Amazing. Kristen, did you have anything that you wish you knew?
Amazing answers. I'm just loving hearing all these beautiful answers. I think probably for me, and this might be a bit of a personal one, but I wish I could tell myself that it's okay that you're going to fall and stumble along the way, and university is really hard, and full-time uni, and then managing a job as well and a social life, it's really tricky. But just making sure that you're staying really true to yourself, be kind to yourself, recognize that a challenge is going to make me so much more resilient in the long run, and I'm going to learn so much from those moments where I've fallen or stumbled along the way. And everyone goes through it, making sure you're really open and transparent with the staff at ACU, and your friends as well. They'll be your biggest allies.
Amazing. Now, our current students, Rachel and Amy, do you guys have anything that you wish you knew, or someone would have told you this time a year or two ago?
Not to repeat what you said, but I definitely agree with definitely pass is the best thing I ever did. In the last 2 weeks of the semester, when I found out that it existed, it's basically a really great, like, 1 hour session a week where you have a student that's done really well in the subject, and they can run through in like a more fun way, run through the content of the week and everything you've learnt, for the subjects that I struggled in, such as like anatomy and biology in first year OT. And then unfortunately with COVID lockdown last year, didn't get to run in second semester, but I learnt about it a little bit too late, but I think it would definitely have helped. So, and as far as I'm aware, for OT, it's only run in first year units. So definitely something to be aware of if anyone's planning on studying OT.
Amazing. Rachel, what do you think? Anything?
Yeah, so a bit similar to Danielle. I came straight from high school, and in my head, I thought, uni is going to be like high school. It's going to be really easy. It might be hard here and there, but I can do it. But I guess something that I wish I knew is that it will be hard, but you will be able to get through it. And as Kristen said, like, there will be times where you'll stumble, but it does build the resilience. There are other pathways. You know, you can always get extra help if you need. It's always there to ask, and the ACU does have the supports there as well. Another thing I just wanted to say too, I know in Melbourne, I assume all the campuses have started it, but we have got a mentoring program amongst speech. So 3rd and 4th year students can help mentor our 1st year students. So just help them understand life at uni, but also specifics about the course and heads up about, you know, making a toolkit or various things.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight. We hope that you got a lot of, I guess, questions answered. Once again, if there were any questions that you didn't have answered by our amazing panelists tonight, please feel free to reach out to Ask ACU. But before we leave, I will say a massive thank you to all of our panelists. We really appreciated hearing all of your very unique and inspiring stories. So thank you all very much. And hopefully we'll see everybody again soon. Have a good night.